What's good, everybody? Mike is in the building. What's good? What's good? Mike is in the building. Welcome to another Freestyle Sunday, guys. Super excited to have everybody on here to check out the stream. Again, we're just turning this up right now, so we're just gonna kind of do our usual touch base that we usually do before we kind of get into the stream and kind of bring on our guests. So we'll start with our usual suspect by greeting some of the people that's already here in the building, saying what's up, man. We have a regular, of course. We have Governor D Nice saying what's good, folks. Thanks for tuning in, man. Always appreciate you coming through. I didn't want to wait too long for us to kind of get the stream started before more people started showing up. I realized more people will be coming on, and that way it doesn't delay too much time in between. You know, from the beginning, the intro running for too long and stuff like that. So we're trying to trim down the fat and make it as, you know, interesting as possible, man. We also have another person here in the building, Moto. All right. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. What's up? Welcome. I've never seen that face before or that name. So one thing you guys want to keep in mind, if you are tuning in to the live stream, we truly appreciate you guys coming through, showing love. I would greatly appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up, be interactive in the live chat. That's always great for the algorithm. It's going to help out. But before we go any further, oh, wait. We got my wifey's in the building also saying what's up. Life with Anna B, of course. Always showing love and support. That's always great. But before we go any further into the video, guys, just kind of run through what's been going on through this week on the channel. We always got to do a little self-promo, so stick around for that. Don't get turned off. But this is part about, this entire live stream is about bringing you content, entertainment. In the same vein, we want to grow the channel. We want to grow our audience. So for this week, we dropped a new video. Of course, we talked about the V2. I felt like something just turned off by mistake, so I'll probably check it out shortly. We talked about the V2. That was a new vlog I dropped. Definitely check that out. Watch the entire thing all the way through. Hit the thumbs up. Again, helps with the algorithm. I also dropped a short on the, I think it was more, oh my God, I'm working on so many things at the same time. Completely forgot. The short that I dropped is about the SC Project exhaust on the Hyper Motard. Wanted to kind of give you guys a general idea of what it sounds like, what it looks like. And we got a couple more people popping up here. We have, hello, my son. That's 650 Eve also in the building. Always appreciate him coming through. I still got to get you on. I know I want to work out all the kinks. I want to make sure everything is perfect because before having you on, you and Kim Peasy and a couple of other people I'm going to have on it also. So this is like the precursor. So we get to kind of help me with some of that. We have futuristic Vipers in the building. Always appreciate you tuning in, guys. Again, if everybody's here, you're watching, hit the thumbs up. Doesn't cost you anything. It helps a lot. Let's see what we got here. Already, questions already coming in. 650 is asking if I'm going to be at MotoGP this year. I will be at MotoGP for sure. I'm going to come on it in April. So that's very excited. We also, Joey Calabrese is in the building. Always love having him on. Very cool. Yo, what's good, man? Glad to have made it to this one, my dude. Yeah, man, I truly appreciate it. I know last weekend it was a huge snowstorm, and I ended up doing the stream on a Saturday, which kind of worked out perfectly because I spent most of the day kind of like doing the snow blowing thing all Sunday, and it was kind of a nightmare. But glad you guys tuned in. And I have that guy Kels, of course, locally here in New York. Always appreciate you watching. Again, everybody that's here, guys, if you could hit the thumbs up, always appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys watching the videos as well. I've been dropping shorts. Those things have been making slow climbs on the channel. I know it's been kind of a rough climb coming back, but the shorts themselves seems to be propelling the channel to a nice place, actually. So looking forward to that. All right. We're just going to touch base a little bit about who we're having on tonight, guys. I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar when we're talking about, let's see what we got. When we're talking about working on your motorcycles, guys, and you guys know I'm pretty passionate about that. What we're looking at here, guys, this is the BrooklynMoto Instagram page. And I highly recommend you guys, if you're local here in the tri-state in New York City, you definitely want to check out this gentleman. Super cool guy. He runs a pretty cool shop. It's between him and his wife and stuff, so it's pretty cool. The minute I posted on Instagram regarding him being on a live stream, I got quite a few different messages from people that already recognize the work that he does, are familiar with his shop, and I've been getting pretty much rave reviews coming through my DMs talking about, oh, I might not be able to make it, but I know exactly who he is. I'll watch it later. He does amazing work. But my interaction with him is going to be this. So some of you may or may not know he worked. I got to put this on when I say this. Some of you may or may not know that he worked for Gold Coast for a period of time, which is a Ducati dealership. And we met and chatted up a little bit. His very first thing that he said to me, he said, your work is cool. We watch it here. We check it out here. Your tools are shit. So that was some great feedback. And that kind of hints to, I don't know if you guys noticed, there's a lot of beta tools on the channel. Immediately after he spoke to me and said, hey, we love the work that you do. We like the channel. We like the the task that you tackle, basically taking the bikes apart and kind of working on them yourself, and mentioned that the tools weren't as good, I immediately got on the phone with Motivation, said, hey, listen, I spoke to a guy, a respectable guy out here that works in a dealership, and he has his own shop in Brooklyn. And he mentioned that to me. If he felt the same sentiment, I'm sure other people are watching this that we're trying to motivate into getting into the motorcycle game or working on their bike, getting inspired. They probably feel that way. From that point on, they partner with Beta Tools, and that got the ball rolling. So thanks to him, to some degree, we're getting some pro tools that you're seeing on MotoGP, Moto America. So that's super, super cool. And I spoke to him, and I'm like, I'm not gonna tell you when I'm gonna mention this, but that's the precursor as to why you're seeing Beta Tools on the channel. So just to kind of make things a little bit better, guys, I'm gonna throw in Mark, of course. I mentioned Brooklyn Moto, but his name is Mark, and he's the owner of that. So I'll let him kind of introduce himself and kind of get this ball rolling, guys. Thank you all for tuning in, man. And yeah, man, here's Mark.
What's up, Mike? What's up, everybody? I'm Mark, own BrooklynMoto. I'm not sure how this exactly works, but I was stoked that you asked me to do this. I've watched your videos as tutorials on things that I didn't really want to struggle with. I think it was the way I found you was I was doing a radiator guard for a V4, and I hadn't done one, and it looked like a pain in the ass. And I just YouTubed it. You came on, and then a couple of weeks later, you walked through the doors, and I was like, I know this cat. So, you know, from a backyard mechanic to, I guess, a professional, or at least trying to be one. Thank you for that, because it just made it a lot easier. And, you know, about the tools, you struggled, right? You struggled because of the tools. That's why I said it. You don't have to have the best tools in the world, but if you're doing things with L wrenches, you know, it just takes you longer. Get yourself a little gun, get yourself a little ratchet. But yeah, a little about me. I specialize in Ducatis, Triumphs, and KTMs. I get a lot of phone calls at my shop, and people have Gixxers or Yamahas, R1s. Some people think I'm a snob. I am not. I always say, find a guy that knows those things, because that's not what I do every day. So if it's got an electrical problem, a Yamaha mechanic on an R1 will have dealt with that problem 10,000 times, will charge you less. And even my clients that have multiple bikes are always like, hey, you manage my Ducati, you manage my Triumph, do this for me. And I always tell them, it's going to cost you more just because that's not what I do all day, every day. Can I figure it out? Yes. Will it take me longer? Yes. Will that longer equal more of your money? Yes. So, yeah, that's about it. I'm in Brooklyn. I've had my shop since '09. Before that, I was at Ducati New York. I'm sure a lot of people are going to start chiming in about Ducati New York and Gold Coast. At Gold Coast, I was the sales manager. Just wanted to try a different part of this industry since I've been doing it for quite some time. And it was cool. For better or for worse, I'm no longer there, but that's about it. So let's jump into what you got to say.
Yeah, I think we'll keep it nice and light, guys. So, you know, just kind of recap here. Mark, you know, in the same vein as I mentioned, man, it's a really good thing that you mentioned about the tools, because I always felt like, hey, I could kind of get certain things done even if I have it. But I did struggle working on that project. And I'm actually surprised that my video was suggested, because I felt like I was one of those people that there was a couple of other videos that was done on that radiator guard in the Street Fighter, but it was done in a time-lapse manner where the camera's far back in the garage or in the space, just somewhat more like a voyeur. And I think I've explained this to you. And guys, we are going to be partnering, going to be doing a small project where we kind of do a small documentary of BrooklynMoto. When the weather gets a little bit nicer, we'll kind of visit it and kind of hear his entire story, because he has a huge time span that he's been in the business and worked on multiple bikes. I feel like that's a story that should be told in the proper manner. But like I said, I'm actually very shocked that my video came up. But yeah, man, it is tough, and I think it's made me nervous. My biggest fear working on any of my bikes was stripping down a screw into the block or something like that, or into the frame. That's where I kind of struggle a little bit when we're talking about using tools that weren't that great. But
Right.
so one of the things, guys, I want to kind of talk about Mark, right? I launched this a little bit earlier today, about 8 hours ahead. The minute I kind of promoted through Instagram, people immediately started hitting me up. And one thing I thought that was really great and that was really interesting about you, Mark, I know we're gonna cover, the whole dealership business or people not hiring professionals to work on their bike. The biggest thing I got hit with today was the fact that you work on people's bike out here in New York, in the tri-state, but not only you work on their bike, right, as a business, you've inspired them to actually wrench on themselves. In most cases, people tend to say, hey man, bring your bike over. That way, you have more business. Granted, yes, you still have to feed your family, but I love the fact that he mentioned that, hey man, this guy, I was very afraid to touch my bike. He's actually inspired me to do this. So please walk us through that, because I think that's a very interesting thing. And I'm like, this is the perfect way to start this conversation.
Well, as far as that's concerned, again, you and I met like the first time I saw something. I'm not above going online and seeing what people are doing out there. Your videos, actually, not to boast your ego, but your videos are very informative, well shot. And so anybody that's on here, do that whole like and subscribe thing. I'm not a big YouTuber, so I don't know how that all works, but this man is putting in work, so respect that and support it. So most of my clients who I've had for many years, they want to wrench on their own things, and they'll ask me for advice. I'm not above giving advice. I'm not after the money today, because the way I see it, if you do a good job for a guy and if you guys connect personally, half of this business is personal, right? If you don't like me, you're not going to bring me your bike.
Yeah.
And if you bring me your bike, you're not going to do it happily. And if you're not doing it happily, then I'm not taking it happily. I feel like because it's not your Honda Civic or your Honda Accord, and I'm not putting out those cars, but it's not your I go get groceries and I go to work thing. This is what you take your pride in. This is how you project to the world and what you're about, and this is your afterthought. This is when you lay on your belly with your feet up in your bed and you're geeking out about parts and you have all the tabs open. You don't do that on your Honda Odyssey. I don't know why I'm picking Hondas today, but a lot of my clients say, hey, I'm trying to do this, and I'll give pointers and I'll tell them what not to do, and sometimes I'll tell them, don't touch it. Give me your US currency, because you're gonna end up giving it more to me. Well, you brought up the biggest thing, anybody could do this. It's not rocket science.
I don't know.
There's a lot of guys.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one, man.
But
Not
it's
everybody.
fine. It's been done. It's been done for decades. Obviously for generations, and it is a scary thought. I'm not gonna say it. I was brought up. My grandfather brought me up in Soviet Union. We didn't have things, so when we found things that were broken, he said, "Pick that up." Not in such nice words. And I said, it's a piece of junk. And he said, we're going to fix it. And that's how, I guess I was brought up, and that's why I became handy. And that's why perhaps I became a mechanic. But I encourage people to touch their stuff, because sometimes it leads to more money to me when they say, I broke it.
That's
not why I do it. But that's not why I do it. But I think, again, because it's not your grocery getter, because it is a way to connect with your machine more, is by, some of these projects aren't difficult. I'm not telling you to tear down your motor and do your main bearings yourself, but if you are doing that, I'll spend 20 minutes on the phone with you and give you the pointers of things that I messed up, because that's, the biggest thing. Well, you brought up, the biggest thing is stripping bolts, right?
Yeah.
Getting into, oh crap situations, how am I going to get out of it? And, a friend of mine that I went to school with, wrenched with for a long time, I opened up the shop. He became a partner. Now he's on the West Coast. We have conversations. We're always learning, because it's like every time you break something, you learn how to get out of that situation. So next time, same with, a lot of people get overwhelmed by electrical. It's like, I learn still, and I've been doing this since 2005. So quite a while, you know what I mean? So I guess stay teachable. And, you know, a lot, because it's a love, because it's a passion for people that are in riding, for people that are trying to get into riding, I feel like it's another way for them to connect. And again, as a business owner, if I spend 10 minutes with you trying to explain it to you, I think that connects us as humans, you know. And so again, it's not your grocery getter, it's an experience. You know, a lot of stealerships, as you will, are getting away from that. You know, a lot of dealerships make mistakes, and most of them, it's not because of bad mechanics or bad people that are working there. It's because it's a business, you know, and because it has to be run and such. And a lot of it is miscommunication and bad service riding, to tell you the truth, because mechanics will read a piece of paper and they'll do what that piece of paper says. And if that piece of paper is not written properly or says, do this, that's what we'll do. You know what I mean? If it says, the worst thing you could do as a customer, I'll tell you straight up, is walk in and tell me that you diagnose your bike if it has a running issue, and this is what you want me to do. Because I'm a machine. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get out this tool, that tool, replace this. And when I give it back to you and it doesn't work, or I call you and I say, hey, that wasn't it, you can't be upset with me. The best thing to do is, if you have a running issue of any sort, find the mechanic that you're comfortable with, that you connect with on a human level, that you don't feel like they're taking your money for not an honest day of work. And then bring it to them and say, this is the symptoms, you solve it, because that's what you're paying them for.
Well, this is the thing that I think that YouTube has done that's interesting. I think we lightly touched that early on in our conversation, where this is kind of going a couple of tangents here. I think one thing that it does that people tend to not realize as often when we're talking about, there's a thing about us guys, about motorcycles and how we're passionate about it. We like riding, you know, some people range, some people don't, and that's fine. Doesn't matter whichever path you choose. But what I love about what YouTube does, for example, referring back to that video that you saw for the radiator guard, okay? Like, there's nothing like walking in someone else's shoes to understand how things work. Because even myself, I suffered from that same situation when we're talking about dealership or taking to not even just a dealership. Let's just avoid that completely. I mean, my experience with dealership haven't been bad, so I'm not gonna put it in that manner where people kind of take it as if it's bad. It's been pretty good. I haven't had any issues like mechanic wise. What YouTube does, just to kind of reel that in, if you really dig deep, you kind of find what you're looking for. You get to walk into someone else's shoes without having to literally do it. Because what ends up happening when you drop off your bike, you said, hey man, I want to do my radiator guard, I want to do my oil, you know, just do some certain things. Some stuff are lighter than others. Right. And a lot of people tend to walk in with the sentiment that, oh, you just do a couple of bolts, you just do this, you put this on, it's back. I always tell people this, motorcycles are like Legos, you know. For you to build a Lego motorcycle, you don't start off with completely complete. You know, you're delayering. The thing is, it's such high-end technology, you know, a combustion engine, you have suspension, you have electronics running through it, and everything is layered into this tiny little package. The one thing that makes motorcycles beautiful, and that all of us love so much about it, how slick they look, the wiring is hidden, all of the mechanics are hidden, is what makes it super challenging to work on, because it's delayering every single one of these components to get to this one minor issue to resolve. And I think parts are not as expensive sometimes, depending if you're talking about Italian bikes or European bikes, that's a whole different story. But the labor that it takes, and I think people tend to overlook that. Hey man, I go to BrooklynMoto, I'm seeing Mark's gonna work on my bike. They're thinking, oh man, he's just putting my guard on, right? They're not factoring that, hey man, the lights are running in your shop. You have 2 other team members. You have a shop you're paying for monthly, and you have your family. By the way, shout out to his son. His son is actually on the thumbnail with him. He's a YouTube. He's big onto YouTube. So unknowingly, that he was excited that his dad was gonna be here. So shout out to him that he's actually on the thing too. So that's cool. But yeah, I think people tend to not factor those things in. It's always like, hey man, this guy's charging me this amount of money to work on a project that I feel like, I think that you don't get that a lot from guys. Guys, we tend to work on facts and knowing exactly what's going on. Whenever it's uncertainties, like I feel. And being able to see this work being done, you could hey man, I'm gonna do on this project for you. Check out this video on this guy doing it. This is the amount of work and effort it takes to get to that one little thing you want.
Right.
And I think having that perspective might actually help, because for me, it started really making me feel a little way if I were to go, because I would go to shops and talk to guys like you and stuff like that. I would say, hey man, I would even see Carrie. You probably know her too. She's a great technician, certified technician. Early on in my career of riding, I'd be like, hey man, could you do this for like a little bit less? Now I refuse to ask that question. I'm more likely to say, hey, here's a tip for doing this, because I know what it's like.
Well, here's the funny thing about that, a little bit less. Me and my buddy that I mentioned before, Chris Henry, he worked at Hudson. So some of you guys on the feed, after he left my shop, he moved upstate, and he did some sick work for them. A lot of these custom bikes that are running around, he built. We always say, when we ran the shop together, we'd always get the question like, yo, you could do this for less. Or how about if I say the bill is 250, how about I give you 200? You never walk into Macy's, pick up a pair of jeans and go, oh, this is $200. I'm going to walk up to the clerk and say it's $160. You mentioned, lights, employees, oil, this, like for me to get rid of my oil is $100. You know what I mean? And all these things add up. Insurances. Thank God my wife is a bookkeeper, and through her grinding teeth and me having to be a good boy, does my taxes and my bookkeeping. You know what I mean? Because if I didn't have somebody like that, that's another $1,000 a year or whatever. You know what I mean? There's so many. I always say it to people, whenever I'm busy during the summers, I have clients come in, they're like, oh, damn, you're busy. You must be balling. I say, if you think I'm balling, come take half my money. I give you half my headaches. And I'm not saying, look, I chose to do this, and every industry has its headaches. I'm not complaining. Like you had mentioned, I use it all the time. I play Legos all day, every day. That's what I do, grown man Legos, but it does come with certain responsibilities and certain bills, just because I charge $120 an hour. If you come in for an issue that I dealt with, let's say 16 times, the first time that issue took me 4 hours to figure out. I charged the client 2.5 hours because I felt that it's fair. A lot of times, especially with running issues, I don't go, if I start a clock and bill you on how long it actually takes me, you'd give me half the bike, and I don't feel that it's fair. I always try to gauge in my head going, this didn't work, now it works. This is the amount of work it took me. What do I feel is fair for this job? And of course, let's say your boy brings me a bike and it has whatever issue it may have on a Hyper. 3 years ago, I struggled through this. And this year you bring me a bike, same issue, or, same model, different, same issue, and I do it in half the time. You're paying me for my lights, my tools, and my knowledge, correct? And that knowledge, at one point, I lost some money gaining that knowledge.
Let me explain. I have to stop you right there, because it's so funny. I kind of wrote this and I'm like, Dag, this is the perfect thing. So what happens with pretty much anyone that deals in a human system, in my personal opinion, is that, like you said, motorcycles bring people together and you feel connected because you're able to give advice, you're able to help. I think the reason why people started feeling this way, even I'm speaking from my perspective because I think I've probably done this. Yeah. The same way you said that you feel comfortable with someone you can give advice. It's not like you said, you gave the example of you going to Macy's, you buying, a pair of designer jeans, and then you just pay. It's very transactional. There is no person that you get to know, you get to chill with. Like, for example, somebody want to hang out in your shop for like an hour while they work, you chat. I think that human aspect tends to make people feel very comfortable. And I always tell people when this business is business, that doesn't mean you don't mix up, your friendship and your business. You got to kind of play it by ear, make sure that it's clean. This is why I was mentioning a little bit earlier. Somebody's working, I'm more likely, for example, even my wife is very understanding of this. She was like, oh, you're going to go pick up your bike from this place? Make sure you bring $100 with you or something. Because she's seen me struggle. She's seen me like yelling from the garage, like, you know what I mean? She doesn't do it, but she can respect the fact that when someone else is doing it. But I think one of the main things you just finished talking about, you said that and I struggle with this also. So I'm speaking from my perspective. So guys, if you're tuning in, you're watching, I know every 20 minutes on the mark, I say this, thumbs up. If you're watching it later, you could drop comments. We could still reply. And we could, even though you might have missed this. Also, Elijah's just joined the chat. Elijah is the gentleman that actually shot me that message about
What's up,
you being pretty cool. We have Angelo's in the building. What's up, man? Thank you. How's my lighting today, sir? He gave me some feedback and tried to help me make things look a little bit better. So, yeah, let me know if it looks good and if everything sounds good. The other thing I was going to mention is that I think a lot of people tend to interpret this a lot this way. So I bring my bike to you because I feel the same way as well. Every task that I've tackled on my bike and I've worked on, and I've actually gotten people hit me up, say, hey, man, I'll give you $2,000. Can you come and do this for me in PA? It's funny. And I'm like, dude, I wouldn't touch your bike. I'm rolling the dice on my own property. If something goes wrong, you know, I have to deal with that. But we'll talk about that also, about you, if something go wrong in your shop, what happens. But when you've done something many times, let's say if it's, you know, you go on your service manual, it says 2.5 hours. But when I bring it to you, you've been doing this for a lifetime, your experience, you kind of get around to it. I think that's where a lot of people tend to struggle. Like, oh, this guy's charging me 3 hours and it's $150 an hour. That's a lot of work. You do this for a living. You should be able to do it in 20 minutes. That's the big issue, I think. Because people tend to be like you said, the tools, again, I know how expensive they are because I was using crappy tools. Now that I'm getting better tools, I'm getting like torque wrenches. My buddy referred me to a torque wrench. The torque wrench was almost $250 to $300. So there's a lot that goes in on there. And I think being able to respect what someone does and being able to understand it, you can, even though, yes, they've done an oil change 1,000,000 times, they could do it really quickly. But at that point, are you just paying because they're fast of their experience? Again, the person's experience, that's something that you do not gain overnight. So years of making mistakes, causing damage to people's bikes, the way you might have to pay out of pocket to fix it. And of course, it's a learning, growing business because new bikes are coming out, new technology. So you're educating yourself about all of those things. Again, I think it's tough for people to wrap their head around things like this because that's where I think it kind of falls between the cracks where people are like, well, this guy does oil change for a living. Why is he charging me 2 hours to do it? So you tell me. You were getting into it, but I had to kind of jump in and kind of tell you.
Well, for oil changes, I charge $40 unless I got to strip half your bike because that's one of those jobs that I don't feel that should be, 2 hours. And standard jobs, I'm talking about diagnostics mostly, as far as that's concerned, or running issues, and they are repetitive. That is why I specialize on these machines. But you mentioned new models come out. Like before I watched your video, before I even met you, had I worked on Street Fighter V4s? Yes. Have I done that particular job? No. And I looked at it, and the reason why I went on YouTube is because I didn't want to make any mistakes. I didn't want to break any clips. The modern bikes, you've touched your Monster and then you touched your V4, right? How much difference
night and day.
Clips and this and that. And what you pull one thing and you break a panel, I can't sleep at night if I break something.
Yes.
It bothers me because, again, most of my customers, they're not just numbers that are walking through the door. I may not be the friendliest guy in the world sometimes because everybody has their day. You know what I mean? You could get pulled over by a cop and he could give you shit. Excuse my language. Miles, if you're on here, my son is 11 and he's probably watching me and I shouldn't be swearing. But if he had his coffee and his wife kissed him goodbye, and he's having a bad day, you might get let off, So again, because people expect you to be on, right? You to be in a good mood, you to be because you're an online persona at this point, right?
Yes.
At times, Monday through Friday during the season, because I don't work Saturdays, I'm sorry. People just think I should always be on, but I have crappy days as well. But that, sorry, I went on that tantrum. Again, you're paying professionals to do the job. Sometimes the professionals haven't done that job. I don't feel that I should rip you off the first time. I always tell customers I'm creating a dope fiend, right? If I give you the good dope the first time, and if I don't rip you off, you're always going to come back. I'm not after $600 today, Mike. When you bring me something, I'm after $5,000 over the years, and that's not to sound like a capitalistic pig. But why else am I here? Am I here to fix bikes because I love them? Yes. But do I need to pay my electrical bill at home? Yes. Are Legos expensive for my 11-year-old? Yes. So I do need to make money, you know? And a lot of times because because this is a leisure experience for people, they feel that it should, and because the internet, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, you know, I started before all this was live, you know, in this industry, before this was so developed and so much information was out there, and creating communities, right? So just because it's a leisure thing doesn't mean that I'm a machine that should work for free. Just because you and I spoke the other day, you said, hey, my rear brake is acting up. Normal problem on most modern Ducatis, pain in the butt to bleed, takes some time, you know. And I said, yo, bring it through, I'll hook it up. And you said, no, I'm gonna pay. And I respect that, you know, because again, I'm not here. If I had an angel investor that just kept dumping money, I would probably do this for free, you know, and I'd be the most popular guy in the world. But I don't know why we're making it so much about money, let's say. I just want the public sometimes to understand, I guess, that, you know, just because we're in the leisure industry, me, other shops, it doesn't mean that we could do this for free. It doesn't mean that our time is not important to spend with our families. You know, I used to have one phone for my shop, for, you know, a personal phone, which was the same phone number for my shop. And at one point I had to spend more money and get a shop phone. So now I look like a drug dealer because I carry two phones, only so I could separate. Because I'll get a text on Sunday, hey, you did it. This is true story. I got a text one day on a Sunday, and I was somewhere with my family, and it was a very angry text. This one I had one phone number, and it was this guy that said, you did a tire change for me 6 months ago. I am now at Bear Mountain and my bike won't start. In capital letters, what are you going to do for me? How are you going to fix this? And my initial reaction is go, you know, to that place. So I had to separate it, you know, and so, yeah, it's important. Look, if you're a computer programmer, I'm not going to cut corners if I'm asking you to do a website for me. You know what I mean? If you say it's $2,000, I don't understand what it is that this individual does, because otherwise I would do it myself. You know, a lot of times guys will come in, I would do this myself, but I don't have X. Like, skip that. Because I don't go to, you know, I got a spot upstate. I don't go to my contractor. I'm capable of doing the things that I hire people for, but I'm hiring them because they have the right tools. They're gonna get it done in half the time, and they're gonna get it done right. You know, and sometimes people tend to, you know, look past that because it's a leisure experience. You know, it's for our passion, our love.
So one thing I think that's kind of cool, at least one really positive thing I could say about having someone work on your bike. So when I work on my bikes and take them apart and stuff, it's like a huge buildup. And I'd like to hear some of the tips you would probably have for someone that chooses to go in that route and that has the right tools and the right equipment to kind of do it. The one thing I like about having my bike worked by someone, I love having a peace of mind and having a pro work on it, or someone. I don't hope anything bad to happen where somebody else would have it covered, but I'm just saying having that peace of mind that someone else did it and that it's on their hand, they're responsible, they're pro, they're paid for it. I think that in itself is worth the headaches sometimes, because you could work on a bike. I've worked on my bike before where I'm like gunning it, I'm like enjoying the bike, and I'm like, I wonder if that was torque right. There's nothing like taking a corner and then you instantly like, I wonder if that's still tight. You know what I mean? So it's one of a very nerve-wracking thing that can happen. And I think the beauty of having someone that works on your bike and you know they're a trusted source. They're they have years of experience, and to some degree they ensure the work, right? I'm assuming you're ensure your work to some degree, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the beautiful things I think that's really cool. And how long would you say, let's say if you did work on a project for someone and that maybe for some reason it didn't work out as well, how long is the time frame would you say, hey, bring your bike back to the shop, we'll take a look at it? Or like you said, like the guy that was in Bear Mountain for a tire change, completely irrelevant to the bike not starting. Any idiot would know that doesn't count. I'm just saying, like, let's say, just a hypothetical. How long would you say?
The guy that taught me, in this industry, because school is school, right? They teach you the basics and they teach you whatever. So, I happened to be handy before I went to school. I just, and then I already worked at Ducati New York in the city, and I had this great head mechanic. His name is Irish Mike. He's out in Vegas now. He said, you do a good job for a guy, he might tell one person. You do a bad job, he's going to tell everybody, right? That's just the rule. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. So I do something that I break something or I scratch something. Again, because I have my own business, because I see you on that screen, Mike, and I see you walking through the shop, you gave me your hard-earned money, and I feel responsible for that. I mean, it has to be within reasonable time. You can't call me 5 years later.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you called me even look, the guy that works on my car, not because I'm not capable, but because I don't have the tools, because I don't have the space. So I give it to him because he's a professional, right? He did something for me 2 years ago, and I called him the other day. I'm like, hey, that never worked. And he said, okay. He looked in his records. He said, bring it back. I work the same way. If I break something, if I scratch something, I'm not perfect. I'm human. And sometimes I have to make those phone calls. Hey, Mike, when I was doing the radiator guard, I cracked this panel. I apologize. This is how long it'll take to come in. You could keep your bike here, or I could zip tie it for now. It'll be good enough. I would have written this way. I just want you to be aware of this because, I save bikes from other shops. I'm not going to mention their names. And I'm sure other shops have gotten my bikes and said, who the F did this? It happens, right? My biggest, when I work, I try to at least, and I'm not perfect. We're all human, right? Let's say I'm doing electrical work. I try to do it as neatly as possible, and obviously so it functions, that the next mechanic that opens it up doesn't go, what rat nest is this? I feel I've had guys work for me and they would do something and I would pull them over and I'd say, if you paid US currency to a professional and you got it in this state, you got it back in the state. Yeah, it works, but it doesn't look good. It's definitely going to break because of X, Y, and Z. I try, keyword, and most times I succeed, to hold myself to that standard. Again, when I do somebody's bill, how would I feel? Would I feel being ripped off at this price if I didn't do this for a living? Or if I do a tail chop kit for you and I rewire your tail lights, whatever, if you lift your seat and I look in there, would I go, okay, a professional did this? You know what I mean? That's the thing. Especially, I run a mom and pop shop. Technically, I could do whatever. And I live in Brooklyn, and my shop is in Brooklyn. It's a revolving door. There's a lot of bikes here. I could just, hey, give me $500 today and never see you again and not worry about it. That's not the way I work. And in fact, I keep the clients that I have. And sometimes I get overwhelmed that I don't take new clients because I don't want to rob that. More doesn't mean better.
Yeah.
I just need a certain amount to survive. I want to do a good job and I want to sleep at night. I don't want to think, is Mike going to take his seat up and I just did his tail chop and find that rat's nest that I left there,
I agree, man. I agree. By the way, dude, I didn't even know you had a YouTube, BrooklynMoto shop. That's awesome, guys. If you're tuning in, man, subscribe to his channel. We're gonna inspire. Maybe your wife did it. She's slick like that. My wife would do something like that. That's kind of cool. So show him love, guys. Anybody that's out here in New York, we love to support other New Yorkers, please. So do that. I'm trying to inspire him to actually put a camera in his shop because the work he does is very important, and I love watching other professionals to learn from other people's experience.
Well, and look, you and I had this conversation. It's a whole nother, right now I'm building an engine. Everybody's screaming at me that I'm not filming it. I
That's what
don't
I
have
said.
your skill set. I don't have your skill set. I don't. I don't have the cameras. I don't have the lighting. I don't, I, you know, it'll take me 17,000 years to build this engine. And it's for a buddy of mine. It's been here for a year and a half. He's not happy. So,
Is that the bike behind you?
No, that's my bike, but it's one just like it. It's a 996.
Okay.
99 996. We got it, ran fine. We took off the plastics and lived by the beach at one point. He's a crazy Italian guy, and we're basically restoring it down to like we went and got gold bolts.
Oh, wow.
Because they don't make them gold anymore from Ducati. They make them silver. So, yeah.
By the way, just to kind of give you a heads up, that guy Kels has brought his bike to you, by the way. He just mentioned here now. For sure had my Ducati black and gold 1199S worked on in BrooklynMoto. Simple stuff, but they are professionals 100%. Dude,
appreciate it, Kels.
CM Moto's in the building, so good to see you here, man. It's been a long time. Edward M. mentioned here, as soon as his monster's done, he's gonna bring it to your shop. We have quite a few people out here from New York that definitely will hit you up, and at least we could see the video through time, and you guys definitely could follow up. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave the link of his shop, his address, and all his information. So if anybody's tuning in, whether you're in the live chat now or you're watching this later, and you want to kind of reference and kind of connect with Mark, all the information will be in the description, so don't hesitate, man. I highly recommend it. I'm actually going to bring my bike there and just to kind of hang out and check out the shop, something we spoke about before, and it's just so busy with work and the bikes and stuff like that, so I definitely got to make that happen. So what project are you working on at the moment, Mark? That's something kind of cool. I know you mentioned you work on that Ducati, so I just kind of figured I'd ask.
Yeah, the 996. This might go off on a rant if I mention I've built a bunch of bikes over the years, some of them under my name, some of them under other shops' names. Just got commissioned to build. The building, as far as projects, let's say not Michael bolt-on stuff, as I call it, like not I put an exhaust on, I put blinkers on. I'm talking about let's cut this Ducati Scrambler in half and make a new tail for it, because it's a mono frame. And the money's not there anymore. It's just the amount of work that it takes, people tend to not want to pay for it. Some shops have success in getting the amounts that it is actually needed to be built properly. Anytime you build a bike, when you're done, you sit and doing the math afterwards, you might as well have been whatever job. I don't want to mention a low paying job. Just, if you equal out the hours, because if you're welding for 2 days straight, a bracket, and then powder coating it and machining it just to make something work and you don't like it, you have to throw it over the thing. So as far as projects and custom bikes, I haven't built one in a couple of years. I have one upstate. It was my wife's BMW 310 GS. It was fine. There was nothing wrong with it, and I cut it in half. And it's but it's gonna be cool. Coming soon, 2028 at this point, maybe. It's got. Because I'm a Ducati guy, I had a bunch of Ducati parts laying around. I put really cool parts on it, and it's a cool rolling chassis now. But I haven't gotten around to digging it back out and getting going on it.
All right, so I'm gonna have to ask you this.
Sure.
I know you like Ducati and European bikes, and you work on them all the time, and you can see I like them too. So I have to ask this every time we have anybody. What's your take on Ducati? Because I know a lot of people tend to say, "Hey, they're super expensive. Don't buy them." My usual conversation with people, if you're buying a Ducati, try to, go between 2013 and up, 2015 and up. I think it's a good year. Not because the older bikes are bad. I think there's certain things that had plagued them early on before they kind of got everything all together. Also, my biggest concern is not really those, because if you could find a good bike that was built well, you're fine. is service intervals. And I think that's the biggest fear about everyone with Ducati, where they have to do that annual Desmo service, which tend to cost a lot. When you have Japanese bikes that are running for 30,000 miles, it's like, dude, those valve springs, they're good to go, no problem.
Exactly. That's
So
fine.
talk to me about that. What's your take? How do you feel? I know you've written Japanese bikes too, so you tell me between the two. I want to hear this.
Well, I came up. I had a Gixxer 1005 that my wife actually bought me when we were dating. Hence, she's my wife now. I mean, it's not like we met and she bought me a bike, but you know, she was doing better than I was at that time. I was a starving beginner mechanic, and I love that bike. There's nothing wrong. Japanese bikes work. Ducatis, I have to disagree with you as far as the older stuff. The older stuff works fine.
Okay.
It just costs more to fix. You know, I don't
Okay.
know. Let's say you have a BMW car. I have a old X5, right? 2006. A fuel pump for it is $900. If I had a equivalent Japanese car, a fuel pump for it is $122. And it's kind of like that with Ducatis. Parts tend to cost more, of course. Depending on where you are in the country, it's harder to find somebody that actually knows how to do it. It's not rocket science, but it is quirky. Let's say if you work on inline fours all day long and you start opening up a Ducati, a pump, you know, an engine, doesn't matter, L twin, B twin, inline four, it's a pump, right? Suck, bang, blow, as one of my teachers used to say. It needs air, it needs fuel, it needs exhaust. It's a pump, that's all it is. But the electronics that go with it, the fuel management systems, everything else gets a little bit quirkier. You know, Japanese all run Kian, which is a Honda sister company, and those are proven bulletproof. They don't really change them. So if you know those things, you could work on any Japanese bikes. Ducatis mostly ran Morelli McNally for a long time, and now they run some Kian and some Continental on certain models. So, you know, nowadays, you have to be half a computer scientist just to touch the modern bikes. So as far as the service intervals, you and I talked about it. It's like, yeah, it costs more because it takes a lot longer. You know, I have valves tattooed on me so I could show people what it is that I'm going to be doing, because it's not as simple. Japanese valve train is a lot more simple. To me, Ducati valve train is simpler now, and just because I've done it, I could almost spin a shim and feel it and be like, that valve clearance is good. I will check it, but I already, you know, it's been decades since I've been doing this.
Hey, Joe, I
But
think it's
then,
because
you
you're
know,
used to
like,
it, man. You're doing it a lot. But I think
exactly, and that is why, again, I specialize in what I do. If I do your Gixxer one day and I do your 1098 the next, it's a completely different ball game. So I have to switch gears, and I'm not going to be doing it as well. As far as the service, look, Ducatis are called Ferrari of motorcycles, right? I don't know who came up with it. I don't use that term. You know, if you want to rock a Ducati, be ready to pay the price. You know, when I was back at Ducati New York, there was guys buying 999s, you know, and they would bring it in for the first service. Back in the day, you had to check belt tension on the first service. That first service, I'm talking about mid 2000s, was costing you $650. You know what I mean? So guys would buy it, and they, you know, a lot of times they would even think it's on the house, which it's not. Just be ready that you're going to pay more. You want to play? You know, again, Japanese bike will do it just as well.
Well,
you know,
here's a tip. I gotta throw in this gem here, guys. I'm gonna give this gem to people that are looking to buy bikes that are brand new. If you go into the dealer, you have cash money in hand, you're buying your bike, you have a little bit more buying power. So in terms of first service, getting your bike delivered, you want to kind of throw those things in before you exchange money. So I always tell people, if you're interested in buying one of these bikes, they're a little bit expensive, yes, but they have a lot of character. They have a lot of characteristics you're going to really grow to love. If you're paying cash, just kind of, hey, make mention, hey, that first service, because, you know, the first 600 mile, it's a couple of $100 or something like that. Maybe you could probably hash that in, have them delivered for free to your home.
I will correct you real quick. Cash. Well, just because I was a sales manager, right? So I dealt with financing. I dealt very recently. Cash means nothing. It's better to the dealership if you finance. So that back in the day, I put my feet on your table because you're the sales guy, and I say I'm going to drop cash right now. It actually, because dealerships will make money off of the financing as well. But in lieu of what you said, it is a good time because that is the time, especially if you vibe with the sales guy, be like, yo, look out. Let me get the first service because again, industry secret. Let's say first service, I don't know, whatever bike is $250. To the sales department, that doesn't cost $250. It
Yeah.
costs $175. And if you're been a gentleman, you're buying a full pop bike from me right now and you're financing it, and I'm going to make a little bit of money on the financing. By the way, there's not a ton of money in bike sales. A lot of guys think like, why is it that much? I'll tell you right now, V4, the shop, if it's cash deal, probably makes $2,200, which is not a big markup considering how long that bike took to sell, how much time it took to sell, took to sell it, how many lights were on, how many sales guys were getting paid. So you always have to consider that. It's not like in the car world, they're seeing $3,000 to $4,000 markups off the bat. Never mind, they're selling you all that aftermarket stuff, wheel and tire protection, this and that, and their markup is a lot bigger. In most dealerships, whoever started them, it's bad business. It is. If you have $1 million and you want to go open up a dealership, you go to a financial advisor and show them a business plan, they're going to tell you to take your $1 million and go somewhere else. You have to do it because you love it. No, it's just the truth. It's slow money, and you have to get into it because you love it. So, but it is, again, at the table when you're signing that paperwork, it is good to mention, hey man, look out, let me get the first service. That's the only time you're going to get that.
So what's your thought, by the way, on Ducati having springs now? And I know we kind of lightly spoke about that also. I think so.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give people a precursor to this, Japanese bikes are running springs, of course. I think
every turn.
Yeah, every turn, every revolution, and then the Desmo system is basically a rocker, literally pushing it up. Ducati did that back in the days.
This.
Yes.
I'm sorry, like this. It either closes or it opens. So there's two shifts, yes.
So I think Ducati kind of did that a long time ago because older technology, spring technology, when the bikes were running at a really, really high end RPM, it would vibrate so much that it becomes pretty much, it hovers. So Ducati kind of went with
it's called valve float, yeah.
Yes. So Ducati's Desmo system did not do that because it's controlled. It's the way it was being worked on.
Right.
As you can see, that Ducati's slowly moving. I don't know if they're moving away from it, to be honest, because their GP bikes and stuff, some of the super bikes are sticking with that and it's working. But I think, like I mentioned to you, some of the feedback about how the brand is going, that a lot of people are the fact that every time you would see anybody that owns a Ducati, the minute they're coming to that, 8,000 mile service, 18,000, they sell the bike and jump to another bike because instead of paying $2,500 for a service, it's like, hey man, I just trade this bike and take that same money and jump to a new bike. What's your take on the fact that Ducati? I think it's a really cool thing. I think they have both options for people. Where if you want to have the Desmo setup, which has a unique sound, unique characteristics, but then now you're seeing V4s with spring coming out on their I guess they're trying to compete with BMW in terms of their GS, and then you have the Multistrada. What do you think?
Well, you and I discussed it. It's like there's an outcry. Ducatistas are going crazy. There's like people jumping off of cliffs because of this. I think it's fine. You're very well informed. Metal synergy, machining. We're moving at such a high rate of how we create parts, what metals we use for parts. That spring is going to be just fine. So it's just going to be a preference. It's not tomato per se. It is going to act a little bit different, but I think it's going to attract more. It is allowing people, other people from other brands to come on board because, as you mentioned, it's a scary thought. Like, oh, if I actually ride my bike and don't just polish it and put 7,500 miles on it in this year, or I want to take a trip out west and come back on it, and then I have to pay another third of the bike just to service it. It's a
Yeah.
scary thought, and that turns a lot of people away. Again, where a GS, well, it's a tractor; it'll run forever. The valves are right there. You could get at them in 12 seconds flat and adjust them, so the service doesn't cost you as much. So I'm for it. Ducati throughout the years has moved up, right? So I worked for Ducati when it was just Ducati.
Okay.
I started working with Ducatis when it was just Ducati. And if you wanna, as a mechanic or not as a mechanic, download a service manual for a Ducati 999 and read it. It is literally written like, do this, you're an idiot if you don't know that, so we're not even going to mention it. I was working on Ducatis, and then I rebuilt my Gixxer back in the day, and I remember I downloaded the manual or went and bought it, and I was like, this is written for a 12-year-old. It's great. Take out your 8mm, loosen that. So in the train of thought of what I was saying, after Audi bought them out, it's gotten a lot more tighter as a company.
Yes.
There's a lot better response to the customers by the company. There's a lot better support for the mechanics. The training got a lot better. The manuals are written a lot better, but they still have a hit and a miss. Like an A21 Hyper, if anybody wants to buy one, I'm going to tell you first, don't. They're just riddled with it.
100% agree. I think one of the biggest faux pas in the most
that
recent,
A21 was just problems.
Yeah, I think it spanned through even to the maybe the 1100s, the 939s. Also, I think there's little gremlins on my own Hyper. All of my other bikes were perfectly fine all the time, every time.
That's right. Yeah.
The only issue I've had with my Hyper, which kind of scared the shit out of me when it first happened, is that the shift sensor. It's a little weird sometimes, a little finicky. If you don't push it or bring it down hard enough, you stop your bike, you pull off, you have lunch, and you getting ready to take off. The bike will not start. You'll hear the fuel pump kind of pushing. You hear the air, and at some point, I thought I ran out of gas. But that's one of the things that I've had with it. But I'm usually pretty straightforward with anybody that watch the channel or be part of the stream or whatever. Yes, I'm a big Ducati guy. I like their brand. I like their bikes. But I would never lead anybody astray and tell you the truth. Hey, this is how much this is going to cost. This is what's going to happen if you end up going with this one. I try to be as straightforward, because what happened is, yes, you might be able to get somebody very excited to get something, and then afterwards they're gonna regret. They're gonna be like, "Hey, man, what the fuck?" I'm paying this amount of money for the bike. I'm paying monthly for it, because in most cases, most people are buying their bike monthly. And then they're paying services and then stuff tend to happen. So I think that's kind of weird. But just to kind of backtrack to what you were just saying, and I have a little bit of insight because I guess I'm slightly an insider also. What tend to happen with Italian manufacturers? I think it's something that's like a base thing in Italy, where because I shared the same sentiment. I would work on projects and I would get the manual and I'm like looking at it and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, you're not really following. It's like they expect you to, hey, common sense and know exactly what this is supposed to be. That's what I thought. And I've had meetings with people and I'm like, what's going on? This is like not great. Because if I'm doing a review on a product you send me, I have to make mention that this is a bad thing. This is an area of opportunity. That's why I always call it when I have to give constructive feedback. But here's what I've learned. In Italy or in those European countries, their interpretation when somebody buys a motorcycle, they use it for fun, they ride it. When work needs to be done, exhaust needs to be done, work needs to be done, it gets sent to a professional mechanic.
Right.
And the professional mechanic tend to be able to interpret their instructions. It's not like you said, Japanese instruction. They're going like a child, telling you exactly what happens, which is great. And I think I could see the change with Audi taking over, being the parent company. But that's what's been happening, guys. They expect these work to be done by a professional. not you doing it from home in your own garage. So a trained eye, a trained mechanic that's seen the work over and over in other bikes can clearly see. They're looking at a manual that's a slight diagram. Oh yeah, I know exactly where that goes. I know what that works.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
they're skipping steps because the
Right.
person that lands in its lap already knows those steps. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit of an insider, and that was like a huge motivation for me to do some of these videos, because I'm like, hey man, this is actually hurting these guys. And even when we would partner with Motivation, we would reach out to to Italy and say, hey, this is what's going on. Is that working, or is it normal to be that way? And that's how I ended up started understanding what was happening. And they don't expect people to work on their own projects. So very
Right.
important, guys. I ended up going to that whole path where I'm doing these videos. As you can see, they're super tedious. Some of these videos take me days, weeks to me to film. Not that the project would take me as long. I do it for that
Right.
means, because I'm like, hey, we need to be able to show people, because not only, I'm not saying that most people that ride, I guess they have an idea that people that ride Ducatis, they're a little bit more well off. They have a little bit more excess money to spend to kind of get it done. But in the United States, people tend to want to work on their project on their own. So I'm like, let me take it up on myself. I want to show people some of this stuff is doable. And that's why some of these steps came along. And I think it's been helping. Hopefully it has. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the case. Would you agree?
Well, first I'm gonna do your job because it's been 20 minutes. Anybody needs to hit the like button because this
Yes. Oh
man
my
puts
God.
up good content. Um, I've used that content as a professional, and it saved me a long time. I did cliff note it and just skipped it, like yeah, but at least it gave me a good idea. So if anybody share it, like it, whatever, subscribe, right? That's what you guys say.
Yes, sir.
Um, and so yeah. Your original question, I already forgot it because I was listening to you, but I wanted to make sure I said that.
No. I was saying about the manuals and how they expect the mechanics to know certain
Yeah.
steps and stuff like that.
Well, no, it's written for a mechanic, and even
Yes.
sometimes mechanics, and any Italian part. Like I forgot what part I was installing when I came onto your video, but their instructions are, hand drawn. It's almost like sketches,
Yes.
and it's just really hard to see. So I'm glad that somebody like you, an influencer, is working on it. Because again, I think it's important that if you're handy, not to be afraid to mess with your bike. Obviously, if you buy a $35,000 or $40,000 Panigale R, you might not want to rip it apart in your driveway. But you just might not, depending on your skill level,
Yes.
But it's like the simplest thing is, I know we keep going back to that particular part, but it's because it looks simple. It's just a bunch of mesh, right?
Yes.
But how much do you have to take apart to get there?
Hmm.
But I think it's a cool way for people to connect to their machines, is working on them themselves, and it's a cool way for me to make money. Just don't lie to me. I always tell people, they'll bring it to me. They're like, "No, I didn't touch it." I'm like, "No, you did." "No, I didn't." Like, you don't lie to your doctor. Why are you lying to me? You're gonna cost yourself more money because then
Yeah.
I have to play investigative, investigation before I even get to the problem. But I always
Which
tell
causes time. Time equals money.
exactly. But I always encourage people to work on their own things. Again, it's not rocket science. It is not easy, but nothing in the world is. I try to stay teachable, and I have to learn constantly. With the new bikes coming out now, the software is different.
Yeah.
So again, with the costs, like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I got to the point where my old software just didn't do certain bikes. It just didn't.
Oh wow.
I'm a mom and pop shop, so I had to go and spend $5,000, relearn this brand new software, just so I could take off your check engine light. Because that's the biggest thing, is like, you bring your bike to a shop, people always say it to me, they're like, "You'll take my check engine light off," right? Because I understand that if I bring my bike in or my car in and you do the job and you can't clear that light, I lose a little bit of, not respect, but like, you're not a professional, right?
Yes.
You weren't able to complete the steps, even if it's a press of a button. it's important because while I'm taking your check engine light off, I'm going to check the codes. I'm going to, hey, Mike, this code came up. It's in storage or it's not active. But it's, you know, if you ever get a check engine light, we might want to take a look at this. You know what I mean? It's just, it allows you to do more background kind of gathering. But again, that's, you know, that's the thing. I tell people, don't be afraid of wrenching on your bike. Don't use power tools if you're a novice, because that takes skill set. Cross threading something is very easy. Getting out of that cross thread could be very hard.
Yep. Yeah, I haven't done it, but I know enough not to even get to that point. So I have a quick question for you. I've worked on a lot of projects on my bikes where I started tackling something and not realizing. I mean, it's one of those things over time with experience, you'll know better. For me, it's basically gathering all tools, getting all reference out. Because before I would get excited, I get like some new parts, and then it's like, hey, I'm ready. I'm putting it on. I already start working on my bike. One, make sure I got full sleep. I don't work on anything late. Do it early as possible where I'm well rested. I'm not having to worry about it. One thing, I'm fortunate I got more than one bike where I could kind of not rush or anything like that and just take my time. Is to gather all my tools, all my reference, and kind of look for any probable cause where people had encountered problems. Before I used to work on bikes where it's like, hey, I start working on it, and I'd stop looking for some tools, looking for this. Oh my God, I don't have this. I have to order, I have to wait. I stop. So what would you say would be some of your, and these things don't happen to me anymore because, again, over time, some of the experience and some of the mistakes I've made, I've learned from it. What would be some of your best, just before I ask that, one of the biggest things that I do now, I do like a hand-drawn diagram of where I'm going, what I'm doing, and notes. I mean, that's, I guess, a garage guy like me doing that. I do it that way, but I'm sure you have like memory where you remember
I take
everything.
pictures all the time.
Oh yeah, I do reference photos too.
All the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna tell you I'm above that.
Wow.
Only because I want to put it back together the same way that it was before, and I don't want to fumble through a manual for 16 hours.
Wow.
Looking for that one picture, you know what I mean? So
I do a lot of reference photos too. Yeah. Right. So what would be your tip that you would, let's say somebody wanted something light, something easier and stuff like that? Because one of my biggest struggles is torque specs. By the way, guys, I might as well make this a little bit of a learning opportunity also and kind of explain things. Because a lot of people always talk about torque specs this, torque specs that. And, you know, I just hand tighten it. My family's been doing like that for years, no problem. So here's what torque specs is really about, guys. So it's really about the molecular structure of the screw or the bolt that you're tightening. So if you're putting like an engine block together, you over tighten it. So each makeup of each bolt or screws requires a certain amount of tension. If you overdo it, even though it looks fine, it's working perfectly for a month, a year, and no problem, the rigidity of that. So it's kind of hard to explain, but if I were to draw it for you, you can't see the molecular structure of the bolt or the screw or whatever the material you're using. When it breaks down, that thing's basically, it doesn't hold up as much. You could break it inside the engine or it could come out. So very important. It's something that's not measurable. You can't see it. And that's the tricky thing. So make sure you're definitely hitting torque specs correctly or don't overdo it. If you're not sure, if you can't do that part, I'd say just don't do the job because you're going to feel very complete when you finish doing it. Yeah, you hand tighten it or whatever it is. But the damage could be long term. And it could happen on the road.
I mean, you're stretching threads against each other. And you mentioned a lot of guys will get Duca bike clutch cover, right? So for you get a Duca bike clutch cover, my first advice to you, make a little drawing and put every bolt in where it goes. This is for
I totally do that. That's funny.
for a Tron, because I'll tell you why. A lot of times bolts will be different lengths. You put a longer bolt in a shorter hole, it might look like it tightened, but it didn't. Then you got an oil leak. If you put a shorter bolt in a longer hole and you're putting a steel bolt into an aluminum case, which is softer, and you're going to tighten it and you're like, why isn't it getting tight? And then you're just going to pull the threads. Yeah, and so then you've wrecked it. Then you're in an oh crap situation. And then If you're a seasoned guy, you know about time certs or Healy coils or thread repairs. If you're not, you could wrench yourself into a corner very quickly and literally just scrap your engine. So, you know, torque, look, I am not going to be Pinocchio and have my nose grow. I torque engines. I torque engine mounts. I won't torque a side cover because I have a torque wrench here somewhere. Like, you know what I mean? Only because I've been doing it, and no ego whatsoever. I've been doing it. If I feel that a bolt is pulling, I know how to. It's a difference of this, right? If you're holding the wrench here, you're putting a certain amount of torque. If you're holding it like this, you're putting a lot less torque. So you know which bolt. If you do it all the time, you know which bolt, what material the bolt is, what material it's going. It's literally, it could be the difference. You know, I'll see a guy using this on a side cover and it's a huge ½ inch. You know, sorry, I'm trying to.
No.
And with, no, I'm just messing around with the camera. And, you know, if you're holding it all the way out, you're going to over torque it, you're going to break that bolt, or you're going to strip the case. So if you are a starter, let's say if you are a weekend mechanic and you want to do the Duca bike cover, or whatever the case may be, yeah, get the torque specs. Get a torque wrench. They're not cheap, but you don't have to get the best one. Don't go torque wrench Harbor Freight. Don't do that because you're going to end up breaking something. Not that the Harbor Freight doesn't have tools that you could use, but just don't go that. You know, get something decent. Don't go Amazon and get it delivered by that guy that's going to drop it 10 times. The thing with torque wrenches is they need services every couple of years because when you set it, it's a spring that pulls internally unless you get a digital one. And that's what clicks when you get the setting right. You shouldn't drop it. You always have to set it back to 0 when you're done with it, and you have to service them. But teach yourself good habits. You know, if you, at first, when I first started, I torqued everything. I would always have the torque specs laid out, and I would have my torque wrench, and I would just go through the settings. I got myself a digital one just because it's easier. You just press buttons, and it tells you, and once it beeps, it's good to go. But yeah, it's important because that's how the terms we use in the industry. You wrench yourself into a corner. You know what I mean? Honey, I'll be in the garage, and honey, let me get a number to a tow truck. I need to tow my bike to the garage, to the shop, you know? It could go there very quickly.
And that's the beauty, guys. That's one of the, you know, this is why I have Mark on, and I think it's very important that we really get proper perspective on anything. I know we're having a light conversation and stuff with small gems in between. So if you would listen to the whole thing through, definitely watch the whole thing all the way because you will find some value here. For example, that was the biggest gem he just dropped about how you're holding the wrench, which one you're using based on where you're holding. Funny thing is, some of the beta tools that I just received, I got like 2 torque wrench. They specifically make mention on how to hold it when you're applying because, again, they don't explain because it's a manual, and you just explained that to me. That's because certain areas are going to apply different pressure. That's a huge thing, you know. And again, you might not want to learn this, or might not be something super important to you, but this is the value you get when you go to Brooklyn Moto, guys. This is the importance of having someone that knows better than you, that knows way more than you, that has that experience, and you know your bike's in a safe place with someone, and you don't have to worry about it when you take it out. Yeah, I work on my bike. It's fun. It's not a problem. You know, in the back of my mind, so if I do something where it's challenging that I've never done before, you know, I definitely have. I've actually worked on a project where I've came back. It was perfect. After like a couple of maybe a month or 2, I've seen the bolt walk. You know. Where, you know, I paint marker it because one of the biggest things for me when I work on my own project, I make sure to watch it. Like that became like a thing every time I'm going for a ride. I'm an inspector now. You know what I mean? I don't get the luxury of just jumping on my bike and having a great time. I got it. And oh man, I worked on that cover. I did that kickstand. You know, I got to check everything because now I become my own insurance. You know what I mean? So. You know, stuff like that I think is super cool. And, you know, just talking to somebody like you, even for myself that I'm conducting, you know, this whole thing between you and I I'm walking away with huge value. You know what I mean? Just that alone, I'm gonna play it over again just for some of the small thing, and even the whole cardboard thing and putting every single bolt in. I thought it was one of the most amateurish thing. I actually have a video where I've
No.
shown this, and I actually do it, and that, I don't feel too much of a jackass that you actually do it. So
Yeah, but why am I going to do guesswork and perhaps mess up your bike later? You see, that's the thing. I feel that any decent mechanic, and I like to consider myself as one, stay humble, stay teachable, don't get ahead of yourself. It's not rocket science. Like I'm not doing heart surgery here, but whatever I'm doing, it's important to the people that are paying me to do it. So I try to do it, in the best way. Me taking those bolts and scrambling them in a cup and then having to guess which one, it robs me for my time. It could rob you for your money, or it could give you a bad product when it's done. So cardboard, very important.
yeah, man.
And pictures, lots of pictures.
So I know I've held you quite a bit, guys. Mark does have a wife and kids, so I'm not gonna hold him super long. So I really want to kind of let you highlight the shop and just kind of, just kind of give us a little quick information about the shop, how they could reach you, and I also want to kind of pull up your Instagram so everybody could see it. So give me a quick little second here. What I'll do is I'll give you the floor here. You can actually hear. We're just gonna hear Mark talk, and from there we'll be able to see the shop, guys. So here we are. Yeah, Mark, we're all ears, man.
Again, my name is Mark. I own BrooklynMoto. I'm the head. My wife's the neck. This is all her beautiful pictures. I couldn't do that for the life of me. I'm in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg, Greenpoint, right on the cusp. Specialize in Ducati Triumphs. That bike's actually in my shop on the bench right now.
Really? Let me see.
And KTM's. Hit me up. I don't answer Instagram all that much. A lot of people want to speak over Instagram or Facebook. I always tell people, either call me. If I don't pick up, text me, and I'll always get back. It might be an hour. Keep in mind that I might be full of oil and can't touch my phone, but I try to get back to people as quickly as I could. And that's about it. That bike is in my shop right now. Ducati New York built it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you have any needs, if you need some information, if you want to just come by and chill, if I'm in a friendly mood, I usually invite people in. And look, I'm human. I'll tell you straight up. Look, I'm working on something. I can't have it. Sometimes it's fine. Sometimes it's not. Again, respect the fact, whichever shop you go to, that they're doing it professionally for a living. So respect their time as we try to respect yours. I know people have had bad experiences with shops, but we're not all evil and we're not all after your bank account. We are here to make money, but a lot of us do, just want to do an honest day of work and create good people, good relationships with people, which I do for the most part. Sometimes I fail, and call it a day. So Mike's going through my shop. That's about it, I guess. That's all the self-promotion I could do for the day.
Guys, by the way, this is my other camera, by the way, so don't freak out. Just want to kind of mention, guys, it's really crucial that I make mention about this, guys, because here's what happened. It's very important for a shop like BrooklynMoto to stay alive and be able to service bikes that we love and ride all the time. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't take your bike other places and stuff, but I think smaller business like this, you get to connect with the person that owns it and kind of give you their own personal opinion and really out to help you. This is not just to say that dealerships cannot help you. It's not that at all, but you have to again, I think as you start maturing, get a little bit older, you tend to understand life a little bit better. Where I would respect a dealership because they're running a business and they're trying to stay open. You can't go over there and be,
if I could interrupt you for a second.
No, go right ahead, please.
Again, I mentioned this before. Anybody that wants to open up a dealership, if they took it to a financial advisor and showed that business plan, the financial advisor will 100% try to talk them out of it. So just know that if you're taking it to a dealership and and you're being, you feel like you're being taken for a ride, a lot of the times you're not. Again, dealerships also have to stay, if it's warranty issues, they have to stay within confines of the warranty procedures. Sometimes if you bring a bike in and it has a bad fuel pump, it may take the dealership 2 to 3 weeks just to get the okay for that fuel pump. And it's no fault of theirs. It's actually the communication with the manufacturer. Sometimes they'll, depending on the problem, they have to send a rep just to make sure that the dealership is doing the proper thing. So, any dealership, whether it's shiny or bright, it's still a small business. Essentially, it just has a lot more money backed behind it. So if you have one that you feel comfortable with, give them your money for things that you might not want to touch yourself. And that's about it. And as far as mom and pop shops, there's some good ones, there's some bad ones. If you go on my Google reviews or whatever reviews, you'll know that you can't please everybody. I don't have all the best ones. I have a couple of bad ones. I have the power to erase them. I don't. Some of them you'll read through the bullshit. And that, I think, humanizes me as a person and humanizes my shop, so that, you're not coming to see a robot. That's about it.
I agree, man. I was gonna ask you one more question.
Sure.
I meant to ask this a little bit earlier, but I didn't want to walk away without asking this, because I'm gonna probably end up bothering, and it's better that other people hear this because I think they're gonna share the similar sentiment. What's your take
Sure.
on dealers partnering with manufacturers to do warranty work? Because I've heard a lot of people struggle with this, where manufacturers try to back out of doing warranty work when it's a warranty issue. And I guess I'm just speaking from the outside, because one, I'm not a professional to determine what's
no.
what's
I know
that kind of
where
work.
you're going with it.
Okay,
So
yeah,
if you have a new bike, you have warranty, right?
yes,
It is a nightmare to deal with warranties. It's almost like coding for doctors, for insurances. Like for Beamer, let's say. For Ducati, it's a little easier. So your bike comes in, it doesn't work. It has to go up on the bench. For Ducati, it's called UTech. It's a program. You have to log in as a mechanic. You have to be a certified mechanic. You have to describe the problem. You have to take photos sometimes. You have to run the bike and give them stats and download. Just keep in mind that it's not a 1, 2, 3. Hey, this is broken. I need a new part. Ducati, send it to me. It's almost like you have to prove the case to them that you diagnosed it right and that it's going to fix the problem. And then they have their own algorithms that go through and say, what's the percentage of this actually causing this? And then you have to wait for the part. So
okay,
as far as warranty, especially in the past couple of years with, the COVID and not getting parts in time and shipping is bad. Just know that it's not the dealership trying to be jerks and trying to hold your bike. It's not in their best interest to hold the bike. And in fact, they're making less money for doing it because just like insurance companies, let's say my shop is 120 an hour. I always get the insurance companies and they're like, yeah, we pay 50 an hour. And I'm like, well, I can't do it for 50 an hour. For dealerships, flat rate is what they pay for the jobs, and their times are usually set very low. So the dealership actually doesn't make money off of it. It's kind of a break even, if not in the negative. So the fact that they're doing it, they have to because they're a franchise, but appreciate the fact that they're doing it. I always tell people when they come negatively at me, I say, what's the end goal here and how do you want to achieve it? Whether you go to a mom and pop shop, always treat them with respect. I know we're in the service industry, but anybody in the service industry needs respect, whether it's a mechanic, a bus boy, a bar back. Just be human, and I feel that if you're human, you'll get a better response. We're not here trying to kidnap your bikes for months on end. It costs us money to keep them sitting under our roof. We'd rather get them pushed down the road and have you have a good experience. But sometimes we can't do that, whether it's a dealership waiting for a manufacturer to respond or whether it's a mom and pop shop waiting for that one O-ring because I don't want to redo the job later and it's back ordered. I know sometimes it feels like lies, and sometimes places do lie. I'm not gonna, but that is why I say, whether you're in a dealership, whether you're John Schmo from next corner works on your bike because you tend to trust them, or a mom and pop shop, develop the relationship. That doesn't mean give us thousands of dollars worth of tips. It just means be a human, treat us with respect as we treat you. And if you're not getting the respect back, then go somewhere else, especially if you're in the tri-state area. There's plenty of shops. There's a lot of turn and burn shops. I'm not going to mention their names. And those, it's unfortunate. Like, I get bikes from this one particular shop all the time, and I'll get like an older monster, let's say a 696, because at this point they're older, and all the things have been done on it, like tire changes, oil change, whatever, clutch flush, everything, all the low hanging fruit's been done on it. But yeah, meanwhile, the guy brought it in for a running issue. By the time it gets to me, the guy's out $2,000 because that other shop ripped him off. And they're looking at me like, oh, well, I already spent $2,000 on this. But to me, I haven't made the low hanging fruit money. Not that I'm after it, but you're bringing it to me for a running issue. Don't tell me what you spent somewhere else. I feel bad for you on a personal level, but again, you and I have spoken and touched upon it. We're all here to try to pay our bills and support our families.
Like I said, man, this is I'm glad I asked you this as the final thing, because that was a really good thing, because some of the stuff I did not know. I felt like, oh my God, maybe whenever it's like a warranty issue, I have no inner knowledge about any of the stuff.
I'm going to be honest. A dealership, it's their least favorite thing to do, because they have to do it as considered by the manufacturer. That is why I say, hey, if you find the dealership that you like, if you find that service writer that you like, if you get to meet the mechanic that you like, buy them a slice of pizza. Send the pizza. I know it sounds stupid, but you do that. In the restaurant you tip. In this, it's not that they're going to do a lot more, but it just shows that you appreciate what they do.
I agree. Anyway, guys, thank you all for tuning in. If you're going to be watching this, if you're going to be watching it after the stream, make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe, watch the whole thing all the way through. On your drive at work or you're hanging out, you could play it and hear this out, because there's a lot of really great gems that are in this stream. Also, feel free to hit up BrooklynMoto and ask for Mark. He's going to be there. I'm going to have in the description, I'm going to have their site, I'm going to have their Instagram, and then you'll be able to follow up with him for any work, or again, go in early, talk to them early while it's off peak in the season. That way you get a slot so you can get your bike looked at. Don't show up there the freaking first day of spring where everyone has their bikes, so be respectful and try to get the work done a little bit early, guys. It's going to be pretty dope, and I really appreciate all you guys for tuning in. And again, hit the thumbs up, help with the algorithm, help the channel grow, and keep an eye out. There will be a little docu-series I'm going to be doing on the shop, and it's going to be very well produced and pretty much a whole cinematic setup, so pretty cool. I'll let Mark has the final word before we close out.
Ride safe, you guys. Have a good 2022 season. Hit me up if you need anything. Again, support a channel like Mike's, whoever else you're watching. These guys put out good content. It's a lot of work. I know this because I've tried doing it, and I'm a better mechanic than a cinematographer and editor. And, ride safe. Don't be a jackass. Okay.
All right, everybody. Be easy. I'll catch you guys next Sunday. Have a good night, everybody.
Later, homie.